Let's start. All right, folks. Good evening. I'm Ryan, and I am the host of the Good Times show here in India. This is actually the first time that I'm doing this in the Good Times Club. Usually, I do it with a whole bunch of folks in the India Startup Club, and now that Clubhouse allows you to have your own club, I thought I'm going to give it a try, and let's see how it goes. So the objective of this is very simple. It's to talk to people who I absolutely admire, right? People who are either stellar founders, operators, or investors, right? The goal is to have a really fun conversation, right? And in the process, learn a hell of a lot, right? Today, I have an exceptional member of the startup community, a super close friend, somebody whose career tracks the Indian internet story unbelievably well, right? The founder of Traction, along with his very able wife, Neha, who's also here in the audience, right? And I would have to say, certainly one of the original super angels in India. We have so many interesting things to talk about, right? Apart from being the founder at Traction, Abhishek, and we'll talk a lot more about this, is I can say in many ways that what he did, and we'll talk about the Flipkart investment, which is what I'm talking about, actually kickstarted this whole crazy startup ecosystem that we have. But more to come. Abhishek's done a bunch of deals, very early seed investor, Flipkart, Delivery, Rupeek, Airmeet, and hundreds more. So I could keep going on, but Abhishek, welcome, dude.
Thanks, Ryan. Awesome to be here.
I was just thinking, we met for 10 years ago now?
Yeah.
I know. And in what was then called Silicon Gully, which was the road in Gurgaon where all these startups, I think we were much fitter, much younger, and completely different time, right? About 10 years ago?
Yes.
Incredible. So for those of you who just joined, Abhishek and I were co-CEOs of two sister concerns, Fashion and You and Deals and You, and that's where we met. Now, Abhishek, to kickstart this, right, as an icebreaker, I'm going to ask you, and I didn't tell you this on the phone because I didn't want you to be prepared. I'm going to ask you 3 rapid fire questions, okay?
Okay.
Just so that people get a sense of who you are. Now, this is, after all, the Good Time show. So let's start with the easy one. What do you do to have a good time?
So I do a bunch of things. I end up meeting a lot of founders. So over weekend, I at least try to meet at least 1 or 2 founders.
Okay.
I have a poker club within our apartment, so I end up playing a lot.
Oh, nice.
Once in 2 weeks, if not more. And then I have started to hear podcasts a lot more often.
Okay.
So that has become another thing. But I think otherwise, like hanging out with friends is one of my key sort of activity.
Are you as good in poker as you are in investing? After all, both are games of skill. Okay, so I see where all the returns are going. Awesome. And if you weren't in tech, if you weren't in the ecosystem, right, and you were doing something outside, what would you be doing?
Yeah, I would have been a gold trader.
You're in a gold trader. Oh, very interesting. That is something.
I do when I graduated from college. So that was my. So this was what I told people when I was you have department graduation. So people were telling what they want to do in life. I said that, look, I want to go back and start a gold business.
That's very interesting. I had absolutely no clue that was the case. And now I have been very curious to ask you this question. I think no better time. Every time I look at a deal, right? Every time I look at a angel deal, you or Neha are always in it. And it's unbelievable. I mean, there is no cap table that I have not seen you on. So how many deals have you done in total? How many angel deals have you done in total?
So personally, I have done like 60 deals by now. And
okay.
Another 65 deals I ended up investing through Traction Labs.
Which you still led. So I would say like 100, 125, 130?
Yeah, broadly, yes.
Dude, that is more than most of the top VCs have done.
So I've been in the ecosystem for 13 years now.
Oh man, hopefully lucky 13.
So like most of these are like people I have known for like, so in Axel I met probably like 1,000 people.
Right.
And all these people kept starting companies and they kept coming back.
That's awesome. By the way, Abhishek is the one who actually got me into angel investing as well, and we've done a bunch of deals where we co-invested with other folks. So thanks a lot, dude, for getting me in. I think that is something that I've learned to fundamentally enjoy. Returns are still awaited, but on paper there are quite a few.
Nice.
We'll wait and see. All right, awesome. So let's get started now. Obviously, there is we can't but start with the Flipkart deal, right? So guys, just to provide context, the reason I said this whole ecosystem tracks Abhishek's career is Abhishek, when he was at Axel, right, he actually did something which is insane. Flipkart had been going around the blocks at that point of time, right? This is 2011, Abhishek?
2009.
2008-9, right? Flipkart had been going around. They had talked to a bunch of folks. Many VCs had talked to them. Nobody was really giving them any money, right? And I'll let Abhishek tell the whole story. But the point is, he staked his reputation and a lot more, which I'm sure he'll tell you about, saying that you guys have to invest in Flipkart. And I'm going to let him talk about what he said and how he engineered that. But Abhishek actually led and drove the investment in Flipkart, which actually is possibly one of the, if not the most significant returns in absolute terms from a VC deal. So Abhishek, talk to us about that Flipkart investment. How did that happen? What gave you the conviction? Tell us the story, man. No, nobody knows this.
Right. So I think I met them in early 2008. So I think these guys, Sachin and Vinny, started in late 2007 out of their apartment.
Right.
This was in National Games Village.
Right.
And so I think there used to be this event called Bangalore Coffee Club, or I think Open Coffee Club. So I think I was probably the only VC who used to attend that event regularly. And
okay.
In one of these events, these guys showed up, both Sachin and Vinny, and I ended up meeting them there. And so from there till I think early 2009, for almost 12 months, every single VC in the town, again, not probably once, but probably multiple times. And I think it was not, nobody bought the story because the markets were very, very tiny. Like books were like less than $10 million GB market at that time. And so I think they kept meeting people one after the other, including a small M&A conversation that they had with Infibeam.
Oh my God.
Very, very close to selling the company to Infibeam before I think things didn't work out, and then they decided to continue standalone.
Oh, that's nuts. So they actually tried to sell and it didn't work out.
No, so they did try to sell, but I think you meet a lot of investors and like everybody says no very consistently. So, and then some, they Infibeam tried pursuing them for a while, and eventually, like after 2-3 dialogues, they sort of, it didn't happen. And I think people have like fair concerns, right? Market was very small. I think there are two programmers trying to build a large operations company which will require a lot of like operations, warehouses, logistics, and which all of which was broken. So people had fair questions that how will you build such a large operations? And I think the biggest of all was that people knew that this kind of company might require a lot of capital, and then capital was not there in that market.
Yeah.
So people had all kind of questions, and I think my house was very close to their house, so I ended up meeting them pretty regularly on weekends.
Okay.
So I think from meeting first time, we probably like internally discussed this deal probably 5-6 times, and every time like the objections are very similar, right? So it requires too much money, there are too much operations. How will these guys build it? Market is too small. There's no internet penetration in India. And you have to appreciate the time that this was the time when a large VC fund partner told publicly that internet is officially dead in India. We should be doing internet investments. And this was in media. This was not like a private quote. This was an article in media. So I think markets were really small. But I think we grew, like we started our careers in internet. So I started my first job was Yahoo, which was like a crash course of internet.
Yeah.
Right. So Yahoo had like 200 properties at that time. This was the time Yahoo was trying to buy Google, and they ended up
billion dollar deal that didn't happen.
Yeah. No, I think the one which actually happened very close to when I was there. So Yahoo was ready to offer 5 billion and Google wanted 8 billion, and that really didn't happen. So when you have an internet company which has 200 businesses, you practically learn about all these businesses. And Yahoo had this culture of doing like business capsules very regularly. So every alternate weekend, one of the business heads would come.
They talk about it.
So you learn about that business, and then I'd worked with Amazon, so I knew how large e-commerce can eventually become, even if things can look small right now. And so for us, it was pretty obvious, but these objections are real, and there was no real answer. That's why the deal kept getting short.
I see.
Right? So they were genuine questions, and there was no answer. So, but I think time and again, it was very clear that the way they were executing was like the bottoms up signal was so high that you just can't ignore it. Like people buy a book, people place an order, get a delivery, and then write about it on Twitter. Right? And like hundreds of tweets would come every day. People would send direct emails to founders saying that this was a great service. And
wow,
it's very hard to see, like even in this kind of era and age where you get like food in 30 minutes, people don't keep shouting about it. Like so, what they were delivering was out of the league for that time period.
Right.
So in my head, if you don't back these kind of companies, what are we backing them? Right. So sometimes a lot of these rationale has to stop making sense, and then you have to say that look, if somebody is out executing so much, you have to back them.
I think this idea of saying a lot of tweets, a lot of groundswell of appreciation, that is actually very underappreciated in many cases.
Absolutely. So and I've done even after that deals where like market doesn't make so much sense right away, but I think customers love the product. So then you have to just accept that as a fact and hope that market, like you can't see what market has to offer today, and let those markets unfold, because just the customer love is hard to ignore.
I think on that note, one of the things I remember you telling me about this, which now seems just hilarious, is that one of the biggest concerns was that this company would need 20 million to get to scale, and who the hell is going to give 20 million? Wasn't that one of the concerns?
Yes, absolutely.
And how much money
did it have capital?
Yeah, and how much money did they eventually end up raising, Abhishek, over the entire life cycle?
Yeah, probably 3-4 billion.
So people were off by 150x.
No, but I think look, what we are doing today will look Stone Age in 10 years. Like in 10 years, I would expect people to come and talk to me and say that, oh, you used to charge your phone every day. Like, were you like a caveman? And that is not hard to, like, that would happen. Like someday in 10 years, we would stop charging our phone like in once a month.
I think it's actually really, I think what is very difficult and what's admirable when you look back is that in general, exponential thinking is very difficult, right? And so seeing a construct where this was a small market, very operationally oriented, engineers, nobody had come even close to this. India was at that point of only known for building, Infosys kind of software. Just to have the vision to think that exponentially, and obviously there is some luck which goes into this, but I mean, even till today, I see that when I talk to folks, exponential thinking is quite difficult.
Yeah, absolutely. There's no credit card, there is no internet penetration, there's no transaction volume. Like, how do you know it will happen in 5 years? Right.
Now,
but I think you have to sort of ignore, like, you have to look at highs. So for me, that was a big learning, that if there is a high in customer love, or some of these questions will remain unanswered. You can't expect to know everything, but you have to respect highs. That is one of my biggest learnings from that.
Oh, that is a really good lesson to learn. So look for some extreme high vector.
Yeah, and this is true for companies, this is true for people. People have similar dynamics, they will have shortcomings, but you have to start appreciating the highs and then double down on those.
That's a very good tip. All right, man. So, we can keep, actually, when Abhishek and I were talking, I was like, we can do 4 shows on this, but let's, so we'll keep moving on. Now, you made this insane bet, right? And, obviously, I work very closely with Subrata at Accel because of the introduction that you made. and he keeps talking about how you essentially forced his hand in many ways to make it happen, saying, if you don't invest, I will do this myself, which is awesome. But you made this phenomenal bet, right? Or you helped Axel make this phenomenal bet, and the rest is history in many ways. But post that, you decided to leave. You were like, yeah, bahut ho gaya, I'm done. I'm checking out. And you could have had a phenomenal rise and become a partner very young, all the good things. What the hell was going through your head, dude? Why did you did you smoke something? What happened? Why did you just decide to leave Flipkart and leave Axel and move on and get to Urban Touch, or did that come later? What talk to us about that? Why move on?
So I think that deal happened in early 2009, and by the end of 2010, Tiger Round had happened, and I think even mobile phone started to pick up. So we knew GMV was scaling very rapidly, and this will become a large company.
Right.
Which also told me one thing, that look, internet is about to happen in India, and I was an internet native employee, right? So all my jobs have been internet company.
Right.
So I said that, look, this is something very magical is about to happen in this country, and I can be on the sideline and become an investor. And when I was leaving, Subrata also told me that, look, you have a real opportunity to become the best investor in India. Why would you want to throw that away? And but I was starting to very clearly see that, before that, I'd worked with Amazon, right? So Amazon, Jeff Bezos has this famous quote, right, saying that what will you regret?
What do you regret? Yes, the regret minimization framework.
And I always, in my own shed, I thought that I could create a very remarkable company, and this is the time to give it a shot. And because Flipkart deal had happened, I knew that if eventually I don't like it, I can eventually
go back.
So that became like my insurance. And when I was leaving also, I spoke to a bunch of my friends saying that, look, if we run into financial trouble, you will have to support me personally. And a bunch of them very gracefully said that, look, no questions asked, we'll give you this kind of money. You go and give it a good shot. So I was somewhat professionally covered and somewhat financially covered to sort of start working on it. So that made it easy. But I knew for a fact that I felt that I could create an iconic company, and I wanted to sort of be in the thick of things, or I wanted to give it a fair shot before I come back.
Now, how did you end up starting Urban Touch? Because you started off selling women's cosmetics, if I remember correctly.
Yes.
And Nykaa is, I would say, the poster child of that now, but you had the foresight very early. And I remember this very interesting conversation that we had when I met you the first time, and I said, so dude, how do you clearly don't wear cosmetics, right? So, and you're clearly not a woman. So how the hell do you figure out what to sell? And you had this very interesting idea, which I'll talk about a little later, about shallow inventory and saying, hey, I just see what customers want and then I stock that. So how did you think about starting a women's cosmetics company, leaving Axel after having done the Flipkart deal?
Okay. So after we had done Flipkart deal, we were still looking to do more e-commerce deals, because we knew that this is not going to be like one player taking on the entire market. There will be vertical companies. There will be
Myntra, bunch of the others happened post that.
Yes. So Myntra and what Axel did Myntra before they did Flipkart. So Myntra, their earlier avatar was customization. So
gift customization, yes.
And so I had done a top-down study of vertical players that can become eventually large. And women fashion clearly came out as a very interesting niche category. There were multiple studies which say that women doesn't like to buy fashion from Amazons of the world. They need their own specialty store.
Right.
And based on which I thought that this is a unique niche. And then there can also be interesting innovation that can be done around distribution as well as retailing process. Right, so that market requires separate content to be built, so you can build very deep content there.
Yes.
The color selection will require a lot of different type of UI than the Amazon layer or Flipkart layer. So you could carve out an interesting niche in multiple places, right? Packaging you could innovate. So packaging became one of the key things that people used to remember about that company.
Interesting.
And I still get pictures from friends saying that my wife still have this box and we are going to this wedding and that box is in my bag.
Interesting.
So it was a market where you could create a lot of differentiation and a lot of barriers to entry for a horizontal player. And women customers wanted a separate place for their shopping for fashion. That led for us, that was the initial thesis which I thought that maybe we should start in this market. And I think, and then Leaf Excel made it very easy. So they did that. So I was debating between two ideas. One was in recruiting and then one was the sell. And I wrote to him, and then a few hours later he said that, look, let's do this fashion thing and I'm happy to back you.
Oh, I did not know that. That's very interesting. For those of you who don't know, Leaf Excel is the guy who ran Tiger, and he's the guy who really changed the Indian ecosystem and to a great level the Chinese ecosystem as well, right? JD and a bunch of others. And he's the one who really brought big money into India. Oh, I did not know that, Abhishek. That's interesting. Now you ran this. Sorry, go ahead. Finish finish your point.
So I think we ended up raising money in like 24 hours, and I was still in the job, right? I had not left. I resigned, but I was still, like, my notice period was 1 year initially. So when I resigned, they said it would take a year. Then eventually I got free in 6 months. So it was in like 5th month when I seriously started considering the idea. That happened. And I had attended a lot of board meetings with him. So in Flipkart board meeting, he would always be there. And
right.
So he known me from past.
Interesting.
So that always helps.
Yeah, but good guy to have in your corner.
Yeah.
Good guy to have in your corner. So I'm going to cut forward a bit because I want to spend a lot of time on traction and where you see the ecosystem today. But long story short, you did Urban Touch, scaled, then you guys got acquired by Fashion and You, which is where we met, right? And you're building this powerhouse. Fashion You, Deals and You. I think the time when both of us took over, the businesses were in very tough spots. So there was a lot of turning around, re-engineering. I know those times in detail. But I'm going to just jump past that because the super angel element, I would say, starts a little post that, right? So you finish that, you moved on, and then you did, I would say, now the third thing that you have done, which is non-traditional thinking, right? First was back these two guys, NGV, to build this company that's selling freaking books in India. Then quit that, do Urban Touch, get acquired, get to scale, become a very young CEO, large funded company, move on from that. And then you go and you start Traction, which is an enterprise SaaS company. And Neha is also here, so I'm going to ask her later on to come up and ask her points of view. But I mean, dude, how nutty were you? It was a SaaS company, enterprise play, targeting the US market. No sales experience there. I remember us talking, you were starting and you were saying, I'm going to do all of sales from India and I'm going to give data on private companies. I'm going to build Bloomberg for private companies, was what you told me, right? And when you were starting, whatever possessed you, what inspired you? Did a cricket ball hit you on your head? How did you start Traction?
So I think one of my learning from running a consumer company was that as much as your success depends on your execution, I think like how much money can you pump in also plays a big role. And it was a little bit top-down thesis-driven business idea that I picked up. And when I was starting again, this time I wanted to pick a problem which is sort of a unique play, which is not like a thesis-driven play, which is a problem I personally want to solve. And half of the large part of the blame can go to Neha because she actually first thought of this idea. She told me about this in early 2010, probably late 2010, early 2011.
And she had, if I remember correctly, identified this while she was as a unique opportunity when she was at Sequoia.
Yes. Yeah. So she was at Sequoia, and we were both technology investors, hardly using any technology, just doing the same work over and over again across firms. If you write to a firm, they will first figure out if this is an interesting company or not. They will find competitors, and that work is repeated, right? So we, over time, built on that idea and said that there is a play around here, and then eventually, as we started exploring, we realized that for public market there is Bloomberg, so you can create an equivalent play in private market. But this time we were not thinking, is it enterprise, is it consumer? We were starting with the problem we both faced first and personally, and then we said, let's figure out what it takes to solve this. And as we started working on it, we realized that you could actually build something which you can find global data sitting out of India, and you can do distribution based out of India. Both of these were things which were not done earlier. But I think we were young enough to believe that it could be done. So I think, and we did our own experimentation. It was not like we doubled down on it without thinking. So we did hedge our risk. So we did keep some small sales team in US initially to experiment and see if it works. And we eventually figured out that people were able to sell it. So hence we sort of rolled everything here. And similarly for sourcing also, we did experiments and see if we can find US companies sitting out of India, and we were able to eventually. And when both of these things were successful, we said that let's do it. And obviously in initial days, everybody used, a lot of people would question that, look, the India market is all about consumer internet. Why are we doing a SaaS company or enterprise company? But within first year, we did realize that all US investors actually used to proudly come and say that, look, we don't invest in consumer companies at all. We all invest only in healthcare and enterprise companies.
I see.
So we sort of had some comfort saying that we are not horribly wrong in our thought process, because they would proudly come and say that, look, just give me enterprise. We don't care about consumer companies. So we thought that there is something interesting there.
And now I think one of the amazing things about Traction, and I've used the product, is that you now have so much of data on all the startups in different parts of the world, how they're operating, who's scaling. There's a lot of significant data behind all of this right now. And so it facilitates much faster decision making, fundraising, intelligence on who's going where. And so what I'm going to do, Abhishek, is we are exactly halfway through. I'm going to just quickly refresh the room. And then I want to actually shift gears and talk about, some insights that you've been seeing, that you guys have been developing, and look at things like where should one take bets? What are some of the trends? How do you compare India to, let's say, other ecosystems? So folks, quick room refresh. My name is Ryan. I used to run the Good Times show at the India Startup Club. Now, since Clubhouse allows us to have our own clubs, I've decided that I'm going to do this at the Good Times Club. This is the inaugural chat with a very close friend of mine, Abhishek. Abhishek's a man who wears many hats, founder at Traction, like we just said, led the first investment in Flipkart, done a bunch of angel deals, India Super Angel. We've chatted about his journey so far, and now we're going to get deep into understanding what are some of those incredibly unique opportunities available in India. For more of these conversations, guys, please follow the club, follow Abhishek, follow me. The plan is to do this every Wednesday evening at 7:30 and build this over a period of time to really give back to the community. Abhishek, thanks again for coming here. Now, at Traction, you have a phenomenal vantage point, right? Because you are effectively looking at data from multiple sources across startups, across industries, across geographies. So, first question, right? What is the fundamental difference in your mind vis-a-vis companies' ecosystem? Well, let's start with the ecosystem. What is the fundamental difference in the ecosystem for early stage between India and the US?
Right. So I think one of the key things that I personally see is so Indian ecosystem has this unique advantage that a lot of our talent is sort of very broadly being trained by all these MNCs sitting out of India. So India has this unique place where every company would eventually open up their tech offices or IT offices in India.
Right.
And they have been building huge infrastructure for talent development, right? So when Infosys started, they created all these engineering schools because people wanted to go to US. So everybody wanted to be an engineer then, and hence a lot of engineering schools opened up. So people from Infosys didn't start companies, but these infrastructure that was established by these companies or these colleges, when that was started, they produced talent which eventually started all these companies. And unlike many other ecosystems, India has been very horizontal as a country, right? So there were not many barriers. You could the talent could move, the ideas could move. Hence, I think our companies will find it much more easier to sort of go global as compared to many other countries.
Oh, that's very interesting. Okay.
So we don't necessarily. So India historically has been a very open country, a very warm, welcoming country. So I think we are more open to ideas as a society. We look at every country, race with some degree of respect and warmth.
Right.
So I think because of that nature, I think India will have. It will be easier for Indian companies to go to, let's say, Eastern Europe or like Germany or France and actually sell their products there, because we fundamentally as a race like respect people. So that is, I think, one huge advantage. And other than that, I think.
So from an ecosystem perspective, right? I that's actually a very interesting view, dude. I think historically as well, we've had people cross our shores. So that's interesting way. From an ecosystem perspective, does the ecosystem in India lend itself to building different types of companies compared to, let's say, a US ecosystem, maybe China?
Right.
Do you see any such patterns emerging? Oh, SaaS is obviously a big thing coming out of India, but apart from that, any other particular types of companies that the ecosystem lends itself to?
So I think like one of the broad themes will be like either SaaS or you can say global. It can be more software as well as services company like TCS. Like what is the unique type of companies that India is going to produce? The first set of companies were IT services companies, right?
Yeah,
so
all around Y2K.
Companies, India hasn't produced largest banks in the world, but India has produced the largest IT services companies, and I think next a lot of services sector like enterprise services companies will come out of India across categories. Like although they are not conventionally part of startup ecosystem, but they are always considered IT companies from a broad ecosystem perspective. But those services companies will scale globally. And by the very nature of that, I think the global enterprise software market will be very large in India, in my opinion. And
so you're saying more along the lines like, so are you talking more like Freshworks kind of, or are you talking more along the line like some of the newer ones, like a ChargeBee or there are a whole bunch of others?
Zenoti or Postman types. So these are two different waves. Zenoti is like vertical SaaS, take a small industry but go very deep. And so I think that will be one big category. Like I can imagine like few thousands or 10,000s of such companies coming out of India.
Vertical SaaS.
Vertical, we will go and build like a bouquet of modules and capture that market.
Right.
So I see like it might sound outrageous, but I won't be surprised if in 20 years you have 10,000 such companies.
Wow.
Coming out of India.
That is
so you can practically eat the entire software market globally. And what is unique about that market is that Indian companies are actually going deeper into product building as compared to US counterparts. So I have seen that US companies typically build a product and they are phenomenally good at distribution. So,
right.
But they don't build so many features. And Indian companies are by design, they go slow on distribution, but they build a lot of features. And in the world where eventually distribution, eventually you can sell remotely over time. So if you build a deeper product, you will have an edge in coming years. So I think I see that as one huge thing. I mean, Postman there is equally exciting because they are category creating companies. They are among the market leaders in that own segment.
Yeah.
So there are going to be fewer such companies, but that is very exciting trend just to see thought leadership
coming out of India. Actually, the first thing that you mentioned is very interesting because there is this whole wave, like the snowflake wave, right, of product-led distribution versus traditional distribution. Do you see Indian companies, by virtue of building features like nobody's business, tapping into that product-led distribution better than, let's say, international companies?
So I think Clubhouse is a great example that kind of company can only be built out of US.
Right.
That kind of distribution brand building cannot broadly be built outside US. But for a conventional SaaS company, yes, you can build a lot of great companies out of India and you can eventually hit the entire market. So there's an opportunity to pick any niche and just go build a product there and then.
And do you see Indian companies in particular going product-led distribution versus traditional distribution? Are you seeing that?
Not as clearly so far, but I think I would assume that Indian companies will learn conventional distribution over time and just find their way. Like you don't have to be very innovative on product-led distribution initially. Because that inside sales talent is getting built, right? Freshdesk has done a great job in building the first level of talent there, and then eventually that will fuel a lot of other things.
One of the things that I've been wondering, and I've been seeing coming out of India, is if you look at the long arc, right? I've been noticing a very interesting trend, and you just compare it with China. So if you look at, if you've read Clayton Christensen, the Harvard strategy professor on innovation, right? He has this framework, which the Square founder also talks about in the Innovator Stack, the book that he's written. They both talk about the same thing. They say that, if you look at the long arc of innovation in industries, what they do is the way to disrupt an industry is actually start at the bottom end. Start low, start cheap, or start free, right? So Clayton Christensen actually talks about this in the steel industry with Glencore, Newcorp, bunch of these guys. And then they say that they innovate up. In China, they did the same thing in hardware, right? They started copying, they started making it at lower cost, and then they went up like crazy. Obviously, now I would say their ecosystem, especially on things like AI, stuff like that, is probably more advanced in the US. You look at India. In India, what I've been wondering, Abhishek, is you look at the software side, right? We started doing Y2K work, right? That's where Infosys and, the world was going to implode in 2000 and, it's going to be all zeros. What's going to happen? We started there. And that's about the time I started my career in Accenture. And if you look at it, we've gone slowly on that. We then, even in terms of SaaS, we started building basic stuff, right? Like Freshdesk, Freshworks now started with just customer service. Now we seem to be going up the value chain, right? Are you very, let's say, what's the right word? Are you very opportunistic about India building cutting edge software-led products?
Right.
Is that something that you believe we have a very strong future in? Are you seeing green shoots of that?
No, so I think software, definitely, like enterprise software will be, like SaaS will be something India will be a very dominant player in coming time. I think there is another interesting play which will happen, which is a lot of tech-enabled enterprise services will get built. And I think X210X is a great example of that.
Right.
It is fundamentally a software being sold as a service. They have taken one function instead of giving only software. They said that, look, we will outsource your entire employee NPS module.
Right.
You could have easily just built a product and sold it for $100 or maybe $1,000 a month. But instead of that, they run it as a full service, and software comes free along with it.
And X210X is just for everybody else here is the company inspired by Binny, right? Binny
started that company to sort of help
founders and early stage folks. Yeah.
So they do 2-3 things. They help you write manifesto of your company. They do, let's say, and they run employee NPS scores for you and tell you where you need to fix things. But I think to run a company, you need 10,000 such services, right? And eventually, India may create this unique way where they can give this service to companies, and then product may be free, right? So to give you an example, let's say when ServiceNow builds the product, they actually ties up with, let's say, Cognizant or Accenture to actually do implementation.
Right.
Think about it the other way around. The implementation company comes and says that, look, this is the product, you can use it for free if you want, but if you use our service, then you can pay for services.
That's interesting.
So that can completely change the dynamics of software ecosystem.
That's also like a company as an API.
Yes, absolutely. So tomorrow, for example, you want to run ESOP as a company. So instead of buying an ESOP software, a company will come and say, look, for this much price, let's say $5,000 a month, we will run this entire program for you. So we will do everything, and then software becomes free. So suddenly, paradigm shifts, and that can be a unique enterprise play that may come out of India.
Interesting, because the service mindset is huge, right? We have a history of doing this. There is talent available at good pricing. Very interesting. And now I think to your point, with COVID, and I can tell you this, for us at Interview Kickstart, and Swati's here, Swati works with me. One of the things that we are realizing is in a remote first world, right? So we have taken a decision saying that we are not going to do hybrid. We will be perpetually remote, and through being perpetually remote, we will run the company in a completely different way. In a remote environment, Abhishek, I think to your point, you can actually outsource many more components of your company, or have people do this for you in the form of an API as a service, however you think about it, compared to before. So COVID could actually be the inflection point for stuff like that.
Absolutely.
And employee engagement is a really good example of that, right?
Absolutely.
Just employee engagement in a remote environment. I have spoken so often to my team, Swati, bunch of folks say, hey, how do we, and it's a full time, we are actually thinking of hiring a chief remote officer, right? If a company could say, hey, I will come on, I will provide you the API for remote engagement, I would sign them on hands down.
Absolutely. So that is another way. I think the even more powerful way that is after, or that is happening along with it, is just consumer companies for global markets being built out of India. China, I think Axel has done a bunch of investments there. Like you have LiveSpace.
Yeah. Ramakant, another super angel.
Like LiveSpace for US is completely built out of India. And there are some early signs that people are Uber runs India operations with a very small team in India.
Right.
Reverse thing can eventually be done, right? So the HQ is in India, and then a very small remote team sits there and then manages the show.
We are doing that, right, at Interview Kickstart.
Absolutely.
That's exactly what we are doing, and we think that from a edtech, we actually reversed the move, right? We were founded in the Bay Area, and then we moved to Bangalore, and so we actually went back, and our thinking there was very simple. You should actually, if you want to build a global edtech behemoth, tomorrow's edtech company will be built out of India.
Okay. So now if you think about Indian ecosystem versus rest of the world, like US is building for US, China is building for China, and US companies do go globally more than other companies. But very soon there will be a time when Indian companies will just think about global markets
first.
Think about local markets. And actually we did the same thing. So we never launched India for a while. A lot of people don't know we were incubated in Lightspeed US office.
Oh.
And we just built for US first. We came to India but continued to build for US, and then eventually launched India because like we were getting customers, but we thought global first, right? And I think eventually India will reach a point where people will just think global first.
So we think global first, for example, right? We think even when we are expanding outside the US, obviously there is tons of opportunity in India, but we think, hey, let's build a global platform. I want people from all over the world to accelerate their careers, right? I mean, you could be in Bangalore, Beijing, Belarus, Boston, Bay Area. It doesn't really matter to me. I'm saying that build from India for the world from day zero.
Absolutely. And so India will become that country, and that is one of the unique things that will come out of Indian ecosystem, which is not true for most of the ecosystems.
That's interesting because all this sort of stuff compounds, right? So we've had a lot of the underlying infrastructure in terms of MNCs, BPOs, IDCs. So we are actually very comfortable with working with international audiences.
Absolutely. And our history is about empathy to everyone in the world, right? So
and language.
World is your home, right?
Yeah, language.
Absolutely. So because of all of that, I think this ecosystem is uniquely positioned to create some of those companies. And that is what is most exciting about future.
Okay, that's awesome. I think we can keep going on. We can keep going on there. But just to, and we've touched on a little bit of this, right? I want to leave some time for Q&A. So this is obviously one big trend, right? Futuristic trend. Maybe top 5, 6 trends, Abhishek, that you think are currently playing out in. And I'm going to actually just bring Neha. Neha, I'm going to invite you up to the panel. Sorry, I think I just dropped. I'm just trying to invite Neha. Okay, I don't seem to be able to do it. Maybe I'll try in a bit. Okay. So, what are some of the key big trends that you see that are playing out in the Indian ecosystem right now?
So I think we have spoken about SaaS. So outside that, in local markets, I think D2C brand is a big trend. D2C brand and supporting ecosystem around it. That is one large trend. I think gaming is starting to scale well in India. Or I can broadly say gaming plus making people entertainment around content that is scaling well in India. Which includes OTTs and all that way. I think EdTech obviously it feels like it has taken market, but I think Byju's is doing what Flipkart did to e-commerce. But I think all the Nykas of the world and then next level of Pharmacy of the world, they are still to be
Vertical, yes.
People will find interesting niches, geographies, and all of that. So there's a lot of interesting things happening there.
Yeah.
Um,
I think EdTech is going the e-commerce way. Anything, if you look at e-commerce, anything that could be retail went online. Similarly, is going to happen with EdTech. Anything that can be taught in any format will go online.
Correct. So that is there. I think, so these are 3-4 broad trends that people are, so I'm seeing a lot more, many more companies there.
What is your view of the VC ecosystem? Is the VC ecosystem evolving to a point where now they are willing to actively support new ideas developed that may not have been tried overseas, fundamentally thinking about India?
So I think in, let's say 10 years, I think VC has come a long way. I think they have evolved a lot. Like I think if you look at, I think 10 years back, you could give a term sheet and it would take 6 weeks to close and nobody cared.
Right.
So I think from that world to today's world where I think people are backing a lot more newer age companies, people are backing somewhat more independent ideas. Having said that, there are enough opportunities to do clone plays, so I don't blame them, right? So if it's a large $1 billion revenue company and somebody is doing something here, good execution, why would I not back it?
Correct.
So that is definitely here. I think one of the things I wish people do more is, I think the playbook is changing. So this whole minimum ownership play that I want 20%, that is, I think, a playbook of pre-2010 era.
Okay.
People are not throwing it away. In the world where we are seeing like $100 billion IPOs, how does it matter if you took 20% of the series or not?
Correct. I think Reid Hoffman has been talking about this a lot, saying that you don't need, even on this Jason Calacanis, his show Angel, where they spoke about this, it's the same thing, saying with companies going at tens of billions, you don't need that 20-25% upfront.
So it was a playbook written in an era where there was a background to it, but that those, like as soon as SoftBank came into play, those assumptions fell apart.
Right.
So I think people have to learn to live with that, and that will reduce a lot of competition. I think today one fund can't work with another fund because of that constraint, and a good company has to eventually select a partner, right? Which is not, I think, good for the overall ecosystem. So I think that is one thing. I think secondly, I think exit period is also a big concern in my head. I think funds typically tend to exit companies after 5-6 years, and what that results into is we are just selling our iconic companies. I think whatever has happened in the past, but I think there is no point selling Byju's to anybody. You should just build it out, let it be world's largest tech company.
Right.
But funds will have their own life cycle, so eventually at some stage they will need to take an exit. And in most cases, they are able to find secondaries or they are able to find an exit, but sometimes the company you have to end up selling the company, right? Which is not good for the ecosystem, because we are creating companies which will eventually become large. So we don't have to sell early.
Yeah, I think that's interesting. How do we, especially as companies are taking now, there is like this whole view, obviously COVID might have changed it a bit, saying that you don't need to necessarily go public. So if you look at the level at which companies are going public, right? It used to be $1 billion, $2 billion, $3 billion. Now it's like $100 billion, right? So you can get money from the public market, from the private markets, and you can IPO much later, which means you need to hold for much longer.
Right.
So that is interesting, because if you miss out on that, then essentially you are taking all the risk, and you are allowing external folks to come in right at the end.
Right. So I think I wish these are two things that would evolve faster. But otherwise, I think I think most funds have done significantly better than what looked possible 10 years back. I think people have evolved a lot faster than.
And what about the new scope of India young funds, right? So you had, obviously the first set was Accel. I would put Helion maybe in that. There was Kalari, which was also there, but then it's basically Accel, Sequoia, Ceph, Lightspeed. They all have some sort of international heritage, right? Now you have, and Nikhil's just joined. Now you have Indian funds starting up. You had, I'd say Stellaris is probably the biggest of the lot. There's Pravega, a bunch of these. Nikhil runs Ubiquity, which is on the debt side. They are doing interesting stuff. So what's your view of this whole, and you did Traction Labs for a bit. what is your whole view of the new crop of smaller Indian funds?
Right. So I think I would still divide that the newer generation into two parts. One is people like Stellaris of the world, Praveer of the world. They were actually more seasoned executives. They have worked for funds for many years.
Yeah.
So effectively, they were younger people relative to the previous partners, hence had newer, brighter set of ideas. So they are obviously raising the bar, and I think that is very exciting crop. I think the second set of crop which is coming is like very like young guys, no investment background, but raising their first one. Like first check is like that, like 100x entrepreneur is like that. So I think that is another trend which is actually they will take their own time to learn, but I think that is also promising because that will set aspiration for a lot of new fund managers to sort of not sweat out for 5-10 years and then start a fund. People will like work for 2 years and say that, look, if these guys can do it, I can also do it. So that will just open up the floodgates for seed or like micro VCs in India.
And
that will be very exciting.
We are starting to see micro VCs, right? And you see, for example, my read is that, like you said, you see the trends actually play out somewhere else first. And what I'm seeing is, I'm seeing all of these trends play out on AngelList.
Right.
There is first check is raising on Angel. We have started, Abhishek and I, who is here, we are starting Qua Capital, right? Because we've been getting so many deals thanks to you and other founders. We are thinking about this as a micro VC, bunch of things, right? So micro VC, I think, is already playing out on AngelList. Do you have a view on that?
No, I think so. I think AngelList have made it significantly easier for people to start funds. Like people can start fund and the LPs have to just put 5-10 lakh, right? It used to be minimum check size of 1 CR for conventional venture fund. So because of that, I think it becomes significantly more easier for people to start a fund and get their friends as LPs. And once you like do 20-30 investment, then you stand a real chance of getting an institutional LP. Institutional LPs won't come early. So this has become like a playground for a lot of these people to build their track records. And I think a lot of them have done well. I think I'm very excited of even like that trend in like Better Capital has led pretty well, although Vaibhav is more seasoned. A lot of young guys have done, some of them have done pretty good deals actually. So in 5 years, like you will see hundreds of such micro VCs crop up, and that would be very exciting.
We see this. Abhishek, who's here, Abhishek and I went, while we are thinking of, we have started this quite recently, right? We got so many inbound, Abhishek, thanks to you, Neha, other people who have been sending us these deals, that it is much easier, like you're saying, to build a track record by investing in even 20 companies over, let's say, a couple of years, a year to two, right? Then it would, because you can do it without institutional money, which is really difficult, which is the difficult thing to do when you're going to start the first time around. So you're right. I do think that micro VCs in India, and what I'm starting to see on the micro VC side, Abhishek, which is very interesting, is that I'm starting to see founder types, right? Saying, so I spend, my Saturdays just doing this, right? Founder type saying, hey, I want to help other founders. And till now, the challenge for me was I'm helping other founders. I can invest my money, but they need more help. So how can I do that? And AngelList, lends itself. We have a group, right, that I'm on with you, which you started, where we share all of these deals. So most of those folks are founders.
Right, absolutely.
Right? And that brings a completely new dimension because, even at Accel, which is a pedigreed fund, the early guys, apart from the actual founders at Accel, many of these guys are professional investors, right? And now you are seeing that founders are starting to play in the startup ecosystem, which is, 3-4 years ago, that was not there. You were probably one of the few. Ramakant, you, bunch of others, very few. But now, if you look at our own WhatsApp group, we have like a ton, right, of all founders.
Absolutely. So I think that is another big trend that is yet to start in India, which is like people selling their companies and then starting a fund, which is how conventional VCs were expected to come out, right? But in India, that cycle hasn't started, right? Many founders who have exited have actually started a fund. Either they have started another company or they are doing something else. But I think so that will happen in another 5 years when there is enough volume of those founders, right? So that is...
Yeah. If you look at the Bay Area, Kleiner Perkins, all of these guys came out of Fairchild, and then beyond that, even today, Reid Hoffman, founders, even some of the SPACs, right, are coming out of large founders raising money. Okay, interesting. That is also developing now. Just in the interest of time, and we do want to take some questions. Couple of quick things, Abhishek, before we throw this open to questions. Do you have some time for questions, by the way?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. So first, couple of things I want to wrap up. If you were a founder in India, right, and we've talked about trend, we've talked about what's happening in the ecosystem. If you are a founder in today's day and age, experience, non-experience doesn't matter. And I came to you and I said, Abhishek, tell me 5 areas that I should look at, whether it's India for overseas, whether it's India for India, whether it's enterprise SaaS, from the work that you're doing at Traction, right? You have this insane vantage point of looking at hardcore data. What is the data telling you? What are the top few areas that as a founder I should bet on, which 5 years down the line, 3 years down the line could be an insanely large business?
Right. So I think one of my personal learnings has been instead of looking at trend, pick up an idea or pick up a problem which you personally relate to a lot, which you would like
happily do without getting paid for.
15 years you will have to sweat it out and get it done, right? So a lot of people don't talk about timelines, but if you do manage to solve it, you will have to give 15, 20 years of your life. Like look at Sanjeev from Naukri, right? He started like ages ago and then he's still running it, right? They have not been able to come out and step down, right?
Yeah, and then he's invested in Zomato and a bunch of these along the way.
Right, but I think you have to practically write off 15, 20 years of your life, and most of your working life is broadly dedicated to it. So instead of looking at it, I strongly advise people to pick up a problem which you would love solving. And Traction for me was that, right? So if I'm not able to run this company, I would still want to be in this market and build something around this. So you have to like that market, like that problem so much that you can repeatedly build a company in that market, right? So that would be a broad area where I would urge people to. That's how people should think, and eventually you will find your way. Like SaaS became hot when we were in 5th year, right? So something like that will happen right now. Similar thing is true, right? Byju's created EasyTech wave, then instead of riding that wave. So I think you should, if you pick the problem you really love, you will reach there. But since you've asked me 2-3 times, I will broadly trends along those lines, right? So enterprise services, SaaS, D2C brands. I think other than that, I think EdTech, health tech, global consumer, these continues to be 6-7 plays which are very exciting. Domestic consumers will continue to remain interesting, but if there is a global play, that is even more exciting for everybody. But I think forget about trend, just pick a problem you really, really care about.
And stay for 15 years. Yeah, I agree. I mean, for me, Interview Kickstart is exactly that. I used to keep wondering, why is it that I don't fail interviews? Why is it that people who are really smart fail interviews? And then I realized it's because they don't prepare. It's as simple as that. And then I realized that it's an unbound problem, right? People don't know how to prepare. And so this is as simple as just that. And so I agree with you. 15 years is what is the part of the story that people don't talk about, right? When you watch The Social Network, you just see the montage and you're like, oh, exit, right?
The journey is
hard.
Relatively hard, right? Like 300 out of 365 days, some people say even 350 out of 365 days will be very grim, right? And literally very hard, right? I have this saying, Abhishek, whenever I talk to a young founder and they say, tell me what is it like to have scaled a startup? I say my days it's a D2D day, right? Every hour flips between absolute despair, delusion, and every possible emotion in the middle, including delight. So it's basically despair, delusion, delight, non-stop. It's just that wheel. Right. No, I think when we were starting Traction, I had this chat with Neha saying that look, it is not as glamorous as it sounds from outside. It is going to be a hard journey. So are you sure you want to sign up for this? And I think, but at the end of it, I think if it works out, then you obviously cherish it a lot.
And that is the reason why you should pick something that you want to do, because it may not work out.
Right. And the regret is a lot lesser because you
tried
know
it.
that if you're not right solving this problem, you would have regretted it. So that is worth, like you basically say that, look, even if nothing worked out, I was not able to solve it, but just for letting my regret the evaluation framework,
I will do it.
Not make me feel bad later. So
Yes, absolutely. Okay, guys, please raise your hands if you've got questions. I see Keshav, you raised your hand. Anybody who's got questions for Abhishek, raise your hands. I'm going to come to questions in the next 2-3 minutes, right? Abhishek, dude, we've covered so much of stuff. We should have you on here again. But I know that you are very future looking, right? You talked about a lot of predictions, but you had a very interesting prediction when we were talking on the phone, couple of them, right? Where you talked about the scale and the number of companies that India is going to build at scale in your view over the next few years, where looking back, we'll almost feel foolish at where we are today. Just maybe to wrap this up before we take questions, let's talk about those 2-3 big predictions that you have, right? And just put them out there, and then I'm sure people have questions on that as well.
Right.
And guys, in the meantime, just raise your hand for questions. I see 3 people raised. I'm going to bring everybody up. But yeah, Abhishek, go for it, dude.
So I think I posted it also on LinkedIn earlier. So one of the things is that like everything. So if you look at Flipkart journey and you say that, look, how somebody can raise 50 million or 20 million, and how that number looks so ridiculously small or insignificant today. I think where we are today will look very insignificant in 10 years. So I feel that in 10 years, we will stop celebrating unicorn as an event. Right? It will become like a numb event. You would not care about it. Like 10 years back, if somebody had raised 50 million, people will not believe. Right?
Yeah.
Today, that is not the case. And we will, as a country, will start producing at least 1 hackathon a year and 5 decathlons a year.
So define what hackathon and decathlon are, just for the benefit of everybody here.
So, like we will be producing 5 $10 billion market cap companies every year, and then $100 billion market cap company a year.
Per year.
Yes.
Per year.
We produce 10 unicorns a year, and from there, like I'm not even counting unicorns because we will stop celebrating that in some ways. But instead of producing 10 unicorns, we'll be producing 5 decathlons or $10 billion companies and $100 billion company a year. And similarly, on the compensation side, I think a lot of people tell me that what should I do with my career. So I tell them that, look, in 10 years, more than 1,000 CXOs or VPs in startups will get paid $500,000 or more in salary. Which basically means like 200 CTOs will be paid that much, or 100 CPOs will be paid that much, 100 CMOs will be paid that much. So whatever career path you are in, just make sure that you reach the top, right? Eventually, you are basically getting best out of yourself, and you are doing such a great job that you reach there.
Dude, this is like a pitch for interview kickstart. But we'll skip that. I mean, that's what Soham and I believe. If you're going to run a career, just get to the top. There is such a power law in the top versus the not.
So I have a small step function there saying that, look, one thing that has also changed in India now is that your competency matters more than everything else now. So just get best version out of yourself, and rest will follow. So you don't have to learn to get to the top in any other way. You just have to learn to do a great job.
Awesome.
And that is all will matter in India in coming time.
Awesome. So, on that note, very optimistic note, there is infinite opportunity in this country, infinite scale available to India and globally. There has never been a better time to be here. That is actually what, by the way, inspired me to call this Good Times, because I think that these are actually the best times that we would have seen, and I think they're going to continue driving that way for the next 10 years in and around the ecosystem. Abhishek, I'm going to take questions now, but thanks a ton, and obviously we'll get to wrapping up in the next few minutes. But let me just pull up the bunch of people who have raised their hands to ask questions. Anybody else, guys, want to raise their hands to ask questions? Feel free. I'm going to pull all you guys up and take questions one by one. Keshav, you've actually been waiting for a while. What's your question, dude?
Hi Ryan, thanks. I have to go to my room that I've scheduled for 8:30, but it's absolute pleasure being here, Ryan. Absolute pleasure. My question is actually to Abhishek, and Ryan, I would love your views on it because you actually asked this question earlier on the difference between Indian and US ecosystems. And Abhishek, feel free if you're not ignore this question if you're not in the same mind space anymore. But my question was, you made some brilliant points on the MNC penetration in our employment space, and that was the sort of argument you made, which was brilliant. My question is, why do you think that we still don't have, like in the Indian ecosystem, we still don't have accelerators? Not accelerators, but platforms like YC, Kickstarter, Product Hunt, even for that example. Thanks.
I think it's a matter of time. I think US ecosystem is like 20-25 years started 25 years earlier than us, so it's a matter of time before we reach there. But we are today like third largest ecosystem outside US and China, and we are ahead of Japan, we are ahead of UK, we are ahead of Germany. So that tells you a lot. So everything will take time to get built, right? It will happen. Like we are post-built, right? So we will have category creating players which will come over time.
So Keshav, to your point, I had a quick thought here. I do believe this is going to happen very soon, right? One of the reasons, if you look at all the Y Combinators and stuff like that, you are starting to see some of that in India through Surge. Axel has, I think, Founder Stack. Lightspeed has a bunch of things. However, I think one of the things that makes this happen is actually founders coming out and doing this, right? Paul Graham was a founder, right? He then worked and did this, right? So I think, so Abhishek and I, for example, talk about this, right? Soham and I talk about this at Interview Kickstart in a different way, saying build a platform for people to upskill. I think this is a founder-first mentality. The ecosystem has been built so far by professional investors in many ways, right? And they've done a phenomenal job because unless they did what they did, you couldn't produce the founders that we have. And many of the founders, like Abhishek said, are going to sell their companies. They are then going to either going to start other companies, which is what some of these folks are doing. Like, you take Mukesh, massive serial founder, phenomenal scale. There are others like this as well. But some of them are going to either start funds. And if you look at X to 10X, right, what Binny's done there is he started a company which is essentially like a platform to help companies scale. So I think it's a question of time. I think these things have already started, right? And they couldn't have worked earlier. I think now is the right time for them and maybe the next couple of years. Okay, great question. Harsh, you had a question?
Hello, yes, happy to be here and one of the first rooms I'm in, so
welcome. I see you new to Clubhouse.
Yes, pretty new here, so just exploring. So actually I had two questions for Abhishek. One is just out of curiosity about his platform and the other is general startup related question. So first question I had is, so I've used your platform mostly for market research of finding out the background about my, let's say, competitors in different space. So one thing I was just curious about is because your platform is one of the only platform with so much depth of information about a lot of companies that you usually don't find information about their employee counts, their investment rounds, their current revenues, things like that. So I just wanted to know out of curiosity, where do you get these data points from that are exclusively available on your platform? That is my first question.
Okay, so Abhishek, give a answer which doesn't give out the secret sauce, obviously, but it's a tricky question. But Abhishek, to whatever extent you can explain how you guys do this phenomenal job. Maybe take it at that level.
I think I think data sources is not. So I think we have two broad sources. One is we look at like a lot of our data is from company website. And the big job that we do is actually to sort of organize that information. And the second is like a lot of data is available otherwise through regulatory filings. It's an open secret source. I think if you search online, you will find enough content around where do you get employee counts, where do you get revenues. So I think the big deal is about like pulling that, and that data is all in PDF, like all kind of difficult formats, and somebody has to write a lot of automation to actually make it consumable, right? So if you look at Bloomberg, a lot of data that Bloomberg has is not like proprietary. These are available data points, but somebody has to like painfully collect the data, organize it, make it searchable so that it becomes an enterprise grade data which somebody can use. So I think the big play around is organizing and making it available rather than anything else.
So I just pulled Neha, who's Abhishek's co-founder in life and attraction, to the stage. Neha, super good to have you here. You know, the reason it's so funny because this is all new to me as well, right? The reason I couldn't bring you up is I realized actually I wasn't the moderator for the show that I set up. Abhishek was the moderator. And so,
It happened to me also.
I was like, if you know, this is like, you know, those stories that you write, right? Eventually, over a period of time, that I set up the room, I got Abhishek, you know, and he was the moderator, and he made me the moderator, which is why I was like, damn, I'm just not able to. People must think I'm so rude. Anyway, listen, great to have you here. You know, since Harsh asked the question, Neha, anything that you want to add in terms of that you guys do, let's say, uniquely, and what drives this insight?
Right. Firstly, you know, glad that you are starting this, and excited about that.
Well, you know
Great
that.
initiative.
So what that means, Neha, and you should just know this. When I invited Abhishek, I said, Abhishek, dude, please send me Neha's phone number, because now that I've got you, I have to get her, because I think we have a dearth of phenomenal women who will come up to speak, right? So, you know, we'll do a show with you as well. But go ahead.
Awesome. No, actually, I think, so we have struggled with this as investors, and, this was 10 years back, and we used to spend so much time in finding out about companies. You know, it is not funny. So we actually had like a BBM group at that time. You know, there was BBM, there was no WhatsApp. And anytime, you know, you would come across a company, a poster, this thing, we would actually find out information. So I think we would collate that information about the companies painfully. And I think that's what, you know, we have done it in a more organized way, collating the companies globally. Obviously we do it using a combination of technology and like sector focus analyst team, which makes it very actionable for people. So I guess, probably just, you know, these things, which is, just using technology and just making it sort of more actionable for people by using it.
Okay, interesting. You know, we will talk about this, Neha, when you come on the show, about this unique mix of people and tech. I think that is a very, very interesting thing. But and Neha, just stay up, right? I'm going to put you on the spot in a minute, and I'm going to do something really fun. I'm not sure Abhishek's going to think it's fun, but we'll wait and see. Okay, so just stay up here, Harsh. You had a second question, right?
Yes. So second question I have is because Abhishek here also has a lot of experience in the whole investment space, and be it as an angel or be it otherwise as well, especially his platform, which has a lot of data about it. So one thing, you know, as an early stage founder that I personally struggle with, and I'm still looking for answers, is that out there, it's very difficult to figure out at what stage are you at. Like, like if I want to today figure out, okay, my startup is at the pre-seed stage or a seed stage or the angel stage, I go out there, look at different VCs, different angel networks, look at their definitions of different rounds, and I'm confused because some have a different definition, some have different definition. And because of these conflicting definitions, it's sort of very difficult to navigate for first-time early stage founders. You know, what are we? Are we pre-seed? Are we seed? Are we angel? Who should we go for? Things like that. So actually, if you can give some clarity on these things, that would really help.
Sure. No, Harsh, I generally have a quote for this saying that if you're going to Japan for the first time, like, keep somebody who has gone to Japan earlier very, very handy all the time. Right? So on your WhatsApp, there should be 3-4 people who have gone to that place before you, and you respect them. So for some of these situations, I think things are very, very varied, right? It's sometimes you have a lot of revenue and people still say it's too early, but you see somebody who has more revenue, no product, and still get funded like $3 million, and then figuring out how did that happen, and what is the method to the madness here. So what I would recommend you is that if you have people in your first degree network who has done a startup before and who have raised some money, get them along with you and take specific advice from them. That would be your best bet.
Okay, awesome. I think, Harsh, you know, don't overthink what stage you are at, right? That is less important. So, I mean, I wouldn't really worry about exactly thinking which stage you are at. Okay, Agam. So, Agam, before I come to you, Abhishek, how much time do you have more? You have maybe 5 minutes, 5-10 minutes?
Yeah, I'm okay.
Okay, so let's do the last two questions and then we'll see if we have time for more. Agam, you had a question?
Yes, Abhishek, pleasure to listen to you, and thank you so much for hosting this room. It's
Not a-
pretty insightful.
Awesome.
So the question, Abhishek, I have is that what's your view on subscription economy and how it's going to pan out in India as such, specifically for startups which run on subscription basis, right? And the do's and don'ts in a subscription-led business, if you have some views on that. One and second, sorry, Ryan, but just
No, you don't have to apologize. Go for it.
The second question is that if you're trying to build a market which is, something in the art space, which is fairly not like the investors or the angel investors are not really interested in investing in a market which is not that mature. So at what stage do you feel founders should, really approach to them?
Depends on what art you're talking about first, by the way. NFTs are the deal right now. So if you look at NFT, this is, there is like, it's even more hot than crypto, but we'll stop. I'll stop there. Abhishek, what are your thoughts?
So, Agam, to answer your question on subscription, I would personally never do a non-subscription business in my life. It is just so, it is 100 times easier to run a subscription business than a non-subscription business. Subscription companies are valued more because eventually, if your company goes public, then revenue predictability is one big deal, and subscription revenues are significantly more predictable than non-subscription revenue. Hence, you can get significantly larger multiples on your existing revenue. So, and obviously, not every business is conducive to subscription revenue, but if you can convert your business into subscription revenue, then nothing like it. Think Walmart versus Costco, right? Costco has converted a retail business into a subscription business. So Costco earns no money from selling goods. They make all the money from annual subscription fee that they charge from consumers. So if you can put subscription into your play, go for it. Even at the cost of leaving some value on the table, but the predictability is just infinitely helpful.
And it compounds. You never start the year with zero revenue.
And then secondly, market, I think, look, when people are funding, like companies which are sending rockets, right? So I don't think it's a function of which market is early and which market is late. I think if you're disrupting enough, I think you need to sort of keep looking out and you'll find people will back you. So focus on fundamentals. Like if you're a subscription business, focus on retention, focus on growing the accounts, focus on getting new customers. Refine your pitch. I think take a lot of advice on storytelling around that. That is one mistake that a lot of first time people make. They would have a great story, but they don't project it well, and hence they do not get as much attention as they deserve. So I think invest on your pitch and story.
Awesome. I think that is, thanks Agam. Thank you very much. That is great advice for actually everybody, which is young founders don't, especially in India, they don't pay attention to their story. They don't pay attention to their brand, right? So excellent advice. Senthil, you have a question for us?
Yeah. First, congratulations on setting up a really great platform, Abhishek and Neha. And this was a very fun show, and looking forward to future editions.
Thank you. For a second, I thought you were thanking me for setting up this platform. I was like, hey, this is just the first episode. Go for it, Senthil.
Yeah, so my question was really on the regulatory stuff in India. You were saying about the number of unicorns becoming so high that we won't bother celebrating them in the future, and that's always great to hear, and I do think that will happen. I started my company actually in the late 80s and suffered the worst of India's bureaucracy, and everything that we did and succeeded on was despite India's regulatory framework. And even now I see that all the time, and it pains me greatly. For example, the instant desire to ban or regulate cryptocurrency that will really screw up everything that we do there. Another example would be drones. There was one silly peeping Tom that screwed the pitch for everybody, and we ended up with drones being out of our reach for several years, when we could have really innovated there, because definitely we had the skill sets to do that. So are you seeing that as one of the impediments to us getting to hundreds of unicorns each year?
So I do feel that we need to still make some progress on the regulatory front. I think like angel tax issue happened for nothing. So we had our own incidences, but I think that is, we had our roadblocks. Other countries also have similar problems, right? Grass has always been on the other side. So we have some issues, we also have some advantages. So but all in all, if I have to start a company all over again, I think India will continue to remain my top picks to start a company. Because I think this country offers a lot of unique advantages also. And we have to work on our weaknesses and we have to double down on our strengths. But like, if I have to start all over again, I think Bangalore will continue to remain my top place to start a company.
Awesome.
We can.
Sorry, Abhishek, did you have another point?
No, we are good.
Okay, I just want to actually, guys, in the interest of time, ask Neha a very interesting question. And Abhishek, I'm going to put you on the spot. Neha, what did Abhishek not tell us about his journey that we should know?
Interesting. I think
That
probably
definitely doesn't put me on the spot. That only puts me on the spot.
That puts me on the spot. Okay, sorry, Neha. What is he not telling us?
No, I think probably all the things. I think he was. I think one of the things is that he was very impatient. Being a Marwadi, I think you're born to start a business. You cannot do a job.
Yes.
So even if you look at his initial stints, they were like typically it'll be like 1 year, and then you would do a startup.
Okay, he was
probably
born for this.
I think that is like in our family, if you do a job, then like every time I leave my job, my dad would call and say, how long will you do a job? Right? So it was more family pressure to start something.
Yeah. So this is the complete opposite. Growing up as a Catholic in a middle class household. When I left, Neha and Abhishek, this is hilarious. When I left, right, and I won't name the friend, when I left to start my first startup, I was basically on the verge of partnership in a consulting firm at the age of 27. So I was like 10 years ahead of everybody else, right? My friend's dad called me over for dinner, right? And my friend's dad called me over for dinner and said, is everything okay? I said, yes. I was like, so this went on for half an hour, okay? And I was like, what is he talking about? Why is everything okay? Then after half an hour, he says, so how did you lose your job? I said, I didn't lose my job. I had a phenomenal opportunity. And when I went and I told my parents were very supportive, obviously. They really want me to do this and they said, let's go for it. But for many years, my mom was like, with all the stress that you're doing, why are you doing this startup thing? Now I think, in hindsight, she feels that was the right decision. But it's so interesting because India's at that phase, right, where we have so many first-time young founders. And so some of the stories are incredible. Neha, thanks for sticking along, right? Folks, thank you all for being here. I have to say, I was, speaking is not something that I usually am nervous about, but today I was nervous. I was nervous about, are people going to show up? Abhishek spent his time. Then when Neha was here, I was like, oh my God, damn. Now she's also here. She's going to better make sure that this is worth his time. Otherwise, he's taken time away from family. And I'm so grateful for everybody, for being here. I'm going to do a lot more of this, right? And hopefully get Neha sometime soon. What we want to do is build a platform where we can have really the smartest and the best founders, operators, investors keep coming here, have these open discussions, drive value for the ecosystem, and have a really good time while doing it. No nonsense. A lot of the stuff that you see on Clubhouse is more for like chilling. This has to be about seriously valuable content. And so thank you all. I do hope you had a good time. Until I see you next Friday, we're going to do next Wednesday, I beg your pardon, same time. Abhishek, Neha, it'd be great if you guys can also join. Very interesting conversation, right? The conversation is going to be with Farooq. It's going to be called Finding Jio. Farooq set up a company called Find, FYND, and he exited to Jio. Jio has been a very acquisitory player in the space, very insightful guy, and we're going to talk about his journey, talk about an exit, and really talk about what's happening at Jio, right? Why is Jio going to be the WeChat of India? Can they build this unparalleled ecosystem? and start from actually a telecom operator, data first, different thinking. And so the goal is going to be his exit and much more to understand what does this mammoth geo hold in terms of the future for Indian internet. Abhishek, Neha, thanks a lot. Thank you guys. Let the good times roll. See you guys next Wednesday. Please follow the club, follow me, follow Abhishek, follow Neha to keep hearing these phenomenal folks come on and talk about opportunities in the ecosystem. Thank you very much, folks. Have a wonderful evening. Good night. Cheers. Bye, Neha. Bye, Abhishek. Appreciate your time. Bye, guys. Good night.